Cowboys, and I want to give a major shout out to Mike Tag. Keep bringing the hype to the Cowboys Nation. We love and appreciate it. Now, can you dig it? Let's get it. What's up, Cowboys Nation?
What is up? It's your boy Mike Tag here. I got Jay Tuck by my side. We're friends, but I think we're going to be enemies for a little while. How you doing tonight, Jay?
Doing good, man. So if I see this layout, man, you changed the colors of the Cowboys cave. You got it all green and orange. And we get that back to blue and silver, man.
We're in due time, but we're gonna mix it up a little bit. We're gonna talk some Canes, and then we're gonna talk a little bit of Cowboys. So you really get the best of both worlds.
Okay.
And to do that, I shared a special story. So Malik Rosier, he was the quarterback at Miami. Took my son to his first game. It was against Florida State, and we're gonna get into it. But it was a fun time, and my son got to see a Florida State guy get rolled down the aisleway, so that made him even happier. So no, but we're going to get into it, but let's just not wait any longer. Let's get this thing rolling. You ready, Jay?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. Let's get this thing right.
What's
Malik,
up?
how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Good. Well, I appreciate you joining the cave. We got a Seminole here, so you and I we'll handle that business. We'll get that thing going. But before we get started, tell everyone kind of what you're up to. You obviously had a successful career in Miami, which we're going to get into, but I know you're doing a lot of great things now, and you're living in my backyard in Tampa, Florida.
Yeah, no. So just moved to Tampa last June. So in June this year, it'll be a year. So really like the area. I train quarterbacks right now, so I run QB Country Florida, which I'm super excited about. I get to train kids basically from like elementary school. So the youngest I have is about 7 years old, and then I even have some college kids for the Miami guys. I've trained Tyler, I trained Jakari some, and then the guy that I'm spending a lot of time with is Emory Williams. He's been with QB Country since about the age of 12 years old. So super excited to be down there with those guys and train them. And then I also have a company called Miami Millionaires Club. And for the people that don't know about that, follow our Twitter at Miami Millionaires Club. And we're doing business networking with student athletes. So this coming up Tuesday, really this coming up Tuesday, and then April the 4th, the university has granted me the opportunity to come in and network with the student athletes, teach them PR, and then the second week is going to be real estate. And if that goes well, I have the chance to potentially get a whole summer contract where, we engage more, we teach these kids more, trying to give back and really help these kids figure out who they are outside of an athlete. So if you guys follow my Twitter, Miami Millionaires Club, there's a lot of information on there. If you guys want to DM me at Malik Rosier 12 about more information, please do.
No, that's awesome, man. Good things, and always giving back, and especially to the kids coming up. It's always a positive thing. So let's get into it. You were a Cane, 2015 to 2018. You had 2017 was the year you started. I think you were behind Kaya
Yeah.
for a few years. So you get the shot. I think it was your junior year, and Canes have we just weren't there. And I will say Florida State was they had our number, right, Tuck.
I mean, during that era, though, that was kind of the Taggart era. So that's just kind of an era we really don't.
Nah, I was there during Jimbo, though.
Oh, yeah, that was into Jimbo. Into Jimbo. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So
I was there more for Jimbo. I think we played Taggart like once. So okay, I wasn't. Gotcha. I was more Jimbo era. Y'all had Jameis and Dalvin and y'all had some units.
Okay, yeah, those are good days then.
I was gonna say we were on a little bit of a losing streak. So I wanna kick this off properly because we're gonna get into that season. But I pulled something for Jay Tuck. I was here. I was at the game. So you just enjoy this real quick.
Left. Rosier gonna take a shot, and it is caught into the end zone. Touchdown, Miami!
Now, nothing better than ripping the hearts out of Florida State at the last play of the game, huh?
Yeah, man. Yeah. So Malik, let me ask you, what was it like? I mean, you've been in the rivalry, but that 2017 year, you're going to Doak Campbell playing against Florida State. Like, what is that rivalry like to be in that actual game?
Yeah, it's super electric. I know for a while, and I still think it's prevalent now that a lot of people, especially when you're a Miami fan for a long time and you get the chance to play there, like how important that game is. Like especially when you watch the years that Sean Taylor played, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed. When you go back and watch, just how much of a war that game was. Like you got to respect that tradition. So, that was one thing that I feel like Florida State obviously took advantage of. They had, I think they're beating us like 7 years running.
7 in a row.
Yeah, it was terrible. And I don't even think at that point it was really a rivalry. You know what I mean? When you're getting beat that many times, you're just getting your ass handed to.
Right.
And it's kudos to you guys. You guys did a great job with recruiting. But to me, it was special. So I was born in Tallahassee. My family's from there. And to go home and win was a very unique feeling for me. For sure.
So how did you born in Tallahassee but end up Miami Hurricane?
So born in Tallahassee, but I was raised in Mobile, Alabama, and family was split. Dad was a Miami fan. Stepmom and all my sisters were all Florida State fans. So it was a inter-house war for sure during Miami FSU times. So it was really cool, to see them change over from garnet and gold to orange and green. For me was very unique, and obviously I knew they were, but for me not to have to ask them to willingly do that, it meant a lot to me.
Yeah. And really, to me, this was a forgotten season, 2017. The turnover chain, that's when it started. And we know at Florida State, the copycats they are, come out with some backpack.
I hate the backpack.
But how was that season? You're talking 10-0. You started. You beat Florida State on the road. You handled Virginia Tech. I think they were ranked 13th. And probably my most proudest moment of hanging out. I always want to say the OB, but it's a Hard Rock or whatever it was then, was the absolute beatdown that you gave Notre Dame. I think it was 41-8 or something like that. So that season, did you guys have that confidence? I know Rick was there. He was bringing some confidence to the team, but it just seemed that turnover. Was it the turnover chain that kind of brought some electricity, or what was that made that season so magical to start off?
Honestly, self-accountability. A lot of times, most teams don't win games. They do enough bad things to lose a game. And I think that by the time we got old enough, we started figuring out, hey, if we, minimize penalties, minimize turnovers, start creating turnovers, starting making them go to have more negative plays than us, most of the time you're going to win the games, especially with the amount of athletes that Miami has. The athletic ability, at least for the University of Miami, has never been an issue. To me, it's been just more disciplined football. Can we line up and not have a lot of penalties? Can we line up and not have a lot of turnovers? Can we create turnovers? And I think that was one thing that our defense did a really good job of, was creating turnovers, and then we just did a good job of scoring once they created them. So, to me, it was a lot of just minimizing penalties, and it's just, to me, that's just basics of football, and I think that's a lot of the stuff that kind of gets lost in the game now, just because of how fast-paced, how spread. You can have a penalty backed up, and it's 2nd and 15, and you throw a slant, and the guy goes 30 yards, and no one cares about it. You know what I mean? But when you have a team that are two equal teams and you start having a lot of penalties and mistakes, that was most of the time where Florida State beat us. We had block kicks, so someone didn't do their job. We had penalties backed up. We'd have late turnovers. It was things like that, like the simplicity of the football game, that we just made mistakes on, and we wound up giving teams the game instead of teams actually having to beat us to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll say, as a Florida State fan, I'm personally envious of the turnover chain. I just love it. So how did that whole thing come?
It was Manny Diaz. He wanted to bring, and it's something that I talk about a lot, is that a lot of coaches have fake energy. They act like they want to be out there, but they really don't. And one thing I can say, at least about Manny Diaz, was he loved the defensive side, and he loved being at the University of Miami. So he was like, what can I bring to excite these guys, to give them real energy? And it was a turnover chain. It was the flashiness. It was the photos. It was the look at me. And obviously, we had a good job of, being a team. But he was like, if I can give them real energy about, when I get an interception, now I get a big chain they get to take a picture with. My boys get to celebrate with me. It was a unique culture that he was trying to create. And he was just trying to create real energy, real happiness about, doing something. Because nowadays, or previously, someone catch a pick, everyone gives them a high five, they go sit down. There was no real, that's real energy coming from the bench. And that's what he was trying to create, was that kind of camaraderie and being happy for, your teammate. Obviously, he went Miami style and had a whole bunch of diamonds and things like that to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now you got slot machines and all sorts of stuff going on.
Well, slot machines was Las Vegas.
Yeah, slot machines now. We had, like Florida State had backpacks. I've seen all sorts of defensive awards now, but Miami kind of started with the whole turnover chain thing.
Oh, yeah,
So
sure.
Well, J Tuck, we always start everything. But Malik, what's your thoughts of I go back to the 80s Miami, and they always used to say, we're gonna tell you how we're gonna beat you. We're gonna beat you up on the field, and then we're gonna be walking to the parking lot telling you how bad we beat you. That was the mentality of the Hurricanes. And I always like that. I think Miami, just when they're at their best, they always have to have that edge. And it seems like it's kind of lost a little bit, through the years. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, or if it's just the day and age that we're in now. But I mean, what's your thoughts, looking at this team now? Because I tell you what, season ticket holder, the thing about the Canes, I'm a huge Cowboys fan, which we're going to get into. They're my passion, but the Canes is a family to me. My dad was season ticket holder forever. Me and my brothers are Canes fans. My son's a Canes. So it's a family affair. It's that special bond that we always had going to the OB back in the day. But we had so much hype for the team going into this season and excitement, obviously with Cristobal, and it went south. What could you pinpoint it to?
I would say, to me, I think the biggest thing they had was just miscommunication across the board. If you go back and watch, especially after the A&M game, Tyler's numbers the following 2 weeks when he had kind of a week, to be with Gaddis, I would say have a deeper understanding of the offense.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people got to understand the same way that Tyler was asked to pick up, learn this offense, and communicate it to his receivers, tight ends, and running backs, etc. The same thing Ponce was. Like, that's not Ponce's offense, but that's the guy that's in the meeting room with Tyler all the time. So I'm thinking about, times when I have a question, I ask Ponce. Ponce might not be able to give me the exact answer, because that's not his offense. He can't tell me everything because Ponce's reads could be totally different. And that was one thing that I learned at Georgia was that, like, Rick ran mesh, and Rick's mesh concept was low, high, mesh back. At Georgia, it was will, mesh, corner down to the flat. So same concept, totally different read. So it's like there could be a lot of miscommunication when you're talking about a quarterback that's very intelligent like Tyler, and you have an offensive coordinator that's not in the room with him every day answering his questions, being able to make him feel comfortable and really confident running his – because at the end of the day, the quarterback is an extension of the offensive coordinator. If you're not spending a lot of time with him, there is going to be that disconnect. And that's clearly what we saw, which is why, I'm happy that we got an offensive coordinator that's also a quarterback's coach. So he's with Tyler every day. If Tyler has any questions, the guy that is creating the offense is there with you. And so that's kind of where I think a lot of mistakes happened. I don't think that, Gaddis' offense is wrong or bad. I just think that the fact that he was a receivers coach trying to coach a quarterback and run the entire offense, you can't do that. And I think that's what he learned. You see him at Maryland now. He's the quarterback's coach. He's not the receivers coach. And I think he learned that, and it was something that they tried, and it just didn't work out. And so hopefully, they can start to have a better mesh between OC and quarterback. Because that was one thing, that Coley did a really good job of whenever Brad was there, was that Coley was always there with Brad. And so when Brad had questions, when he felt uncomfortable, he was able to explain his offense to Brad in detail because he knew the ins and outs and why he was reading certain areas. And, like that'd be like us asking KB right now to explain to Tyler Van Dyke, Coach Dawson's offense. Like it doesn't make sense. It's not the right thing to do. So that's where I think a lot of that, at least on the offensive side, with miscues and confidence issues, will definitely start to adjust, at least from the quarterback position.
Yeah. And Jay, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I was going to ask you. So let's flip the perspective from Florida State standpoint. They got a quarterback in Jordan Travis. What's your thoughts on Jordan Travis? He had a great season last year.
Yeah,
Heisman buzz coming into this season.
I did too much about this Florida State. I don't want to
hear. So I mean, listen, I'm an honest person, and it's the thing though. As much as like, I don't like Florida State because I played in Miami. I also do very much respect them as a program. You know what I mean? So if they have good players, like I'm not going to be like, oh, nah, like the kid sucks because,
right.
You know what I mean? I see it from a very like neutral standpoint, but obviously like they're the one team that I don't like. But anyways, Jordan Travis last year, I thought he had a lot to prove with throwing the football. I knew he was a very dynamic athlete. Obviously, we saw a lot of plays he made with his feet. But my biggest thing is that, if he's going to try to compete against Alabama, the Georgias, the Ohio States, he has to beat people in the pocket. And I feel like last year he showed you that. You know what I mean? There was plays where he stood in the pocket and he threw strikes and, You know, I mean, he sat there and looked very comfortable. Then there was times where he looked like Houdini and was running around making plays. So I think you guys have a really good quarterback. The biggest thing for him is now, can he just build on top of that? You know, a lot of offensive coordinator, or a lot of defensive coordinators, I feel like really tried him. And what I mean is, whenever I know that this guy, or I believe he can't throw, I'm going to go to more man coverages, and I'm going to make you try to beat me man on man. I'm going to load the box and I give you the run. So now what I think is going to happen is a lot of teams are going to do the same thing to Tyler. They're going to play more loose coverages. They're going to play more too high. You know, they're going to try to say, hey, beat us with the run. We're not going to let you sit here and, you know, throw to big, what's his name, Johnny Wilson?
Yeah,
I'm not going to let him sit there and let you throw to him all day. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where, you know, his adjustment to the game is going to have to change as well. And him being able to, you know, when they do give you single high, take advantage of it, but, you know, being comfortable taking check downs and not having to take those big shots, which is what, you know, they gave him last year. You know, there was a ton of one-on-one coverage with people with Johnny Wilson. I feel like a lot of that is going to change because he's proven the fact that if you give me that, I'm going to beat you. And so I think there's going to be DCs that do a lot of studying on him and start to change. And so to me, it won't be the fact that do you have the talent, is can you stay consistent when teams start to adjust? Can you also adjust too?
Yeah. No, and talking about rivalry and the respect, you know, you did say, and I respect Florida State.
Yeah.
Who I don't respect is Florida, and I don't know. I think Florida State have that mutual. You know, Florida's scared to play us all the time, so we know how that deal works. But just real quick, just looking back at rivalries. So Notre Dame, Florida State, that season, what was the sweeter win?
Honestly, Florida State. To be honest with you, I would say the win that was the funnest was Notre Dame. The win that I think meant more to the team was definitely FSU.
Yeah.
You know, that game was obviously before, and like I think about even was it Jacory Harris or Stephen Morris's team? We were like 7-0, 8-0. We go play Tallahassee, we get beat, and then like we just never recovered. Like the whole season just tanked.
Over. Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I felt about Florida State, was that, you know, if we didn't get past Florida State, I don't think the rest of that season would have went as well. If we'd have lost to Notre Dame because it was such a big game, they were number 3, I think we would have got past that. But I think if it had been 8 years losing to Florida State, I think that there would have been people that just mentally checked out. And I think the fact that we beat them, we got over that hump. It was like, okay, guys, we got past one. It's kind of like that saying, like, once you kind of get the ball rolling, it's kind of easier to just keep pushing it. I think Florida State kind of just got us over that hump that we needed to.
Yeah, and one comment is, can we get the 7th floor crew back? Is that possible to get that?
No.
I always laugh at Greg Olson. I could never look at Greg Olson whenever I see him on TV. It's just something. But we had a comment regarding your thoughts, maybe on the NIL transfer portal, where college football's going. Any thoughts? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad? I've heard, you know, a lot of mixed emotions and a lot of passions both ways.
Yeah, so I would say that it's almost like the same concept as money. It's like the idea isn't bad. What you do with it can be. And so my biggest thing to a lot of guys is educate yourself, because now that you're making money, you're going to get taxed. So understand what tax bracket you fall in. Then on top of that, you know, I try to teach them to like invest into themselves. And I would say for anyone they know that is doing NIL, or, you know, anyone that's signing these kids with massive contracts, the biggest thing that I really hope that people start to do, and I think you're seeing like Florida do it more with like financial literacy, is inside that contract, teach them, say, hey man, I'm going to give you $100,000, you know, each month you're going to post about us, but also for an hour bi-weekly, you're also going to learn about financial literacy. So I'm going to have my accountant, I'm going to have my financer, I'm going to have my money manager all come talk to you. And that's kind of where, you know, you can see these kids now start to make money outside of just their sport, because what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of kids that are getting paid 6, some even 7 figures, that this will be the most money they ever make in their life, point blank period. And they got to learn how to like live off this, because you might have to go for a couple of years working 9 to 5 while you're building your own business. And so this money might be something that you use because you saved it up, and now that's what you use as your initial investment into yourself. So that's kind of what I teach a lot of kids, is that, you know, don't go out there buying Dior's and Jordans and a nice change. You know, maybe you sign a big contract, you take a small percentage, say, hey, I'm going to take 10%, you know, I'm going to buy a whole bunch of nice stuff. The other 90, I got to spend on investing in myself or saving or buying real estate. Maybe you go buy a house and you and 3 buddies living in 4 years, the house is paid off. So it's kind of teaching them. I don't think there's anything wrong with NIL as long as you educate these kids on how to properly invest the money and invest into themselves. This can actually be really good because, like I said, like if I could make money on myself whenever I was a junior and senior, that probably could have set me up right now. And there's nothing wrong, but it's like, if I'd have had an extra $100,000-$200,000 that I could invest it in, the people that I knew could have helped me with a lot of stocks, bonds, crypto, things like that. And so it's like, as long as you're doing it the right way, there's really nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, that's great, man. Because I think what a lot of these kids don't understand is their time horizon. So to be 18 with $200,000 in the bank, like I'm killed for that.
The problem is social media, though. The problem is that social media shows you a very obscure scene where, like, they only show the rich and famous. They only show the top kids that are making, 6 figures off of doing YouTube. And there's so many people doing it, and so many people don't make 6 figures. And that's the side that a lot of people don't see. And so I feel like it's becoming a norm. And, over time, there's going to be people that start to speak up that says, hey, man, like, you got to take advantage of, the time, the resources, the people that want to invest in you because you're young, because you're good at marketing and you got to market yourself. And there's going to be people like, I think the Cabrera twins have done a great job of saying, hey, if they left basketball, they could go into modeling, they can go into PR, they can go into marketing. They have their commercials, and it's like, that's kind of where you have to see yourself with this NIL is saying, hey, how can I brand myself to where if sports failed, I did a good enough job that I can make a living off of it. And that's kind of where I can see some people start to do that on the side as well.
Yeah. And I that's why I think there's definitely some good parts about it, but I think there's some dangerous parts about it with, the way the recruitment is and some advantages taken against kids.
It is. But so that's kind of where I hope over time. And I think it'll get there to where people start being capped. And not that I want to be like dealt with like an NFL roster. But I also don't like the fact that if someone throws, $20 million at a kid, that he's going to go commit to Nevada and not, I don't know, Georgia or wherever, where he should have went. To me, I think when you start capping it, now you start, putting people back in the same ball field as where like now kids are making a decision based on education, coaching, not off just, I'm getting paid a bag. So that's kind of where I really hope that that's where like NIL starts to go to. And I don't think these kids need more than like, $500,000. Yeah, that's still a lot of money.
Right.
But like, I don't, these kids that are making $1.5, $2 million, I think some of that's just absurd.
Yeah.
I agree. When you add the NIL plus the transfer portal, right? So I can just pull Miami's top talent to Florida State. And I can just toss the bag. It's just kind of a free for all. So
it is.
They need some types of rules. But I'm definitely.
So it was like the same thing with like Drake May. Like Drake May, there was a lot of stuff floating about his name in the portal because there was I think it was like Notre Dame was trying to offer him like $2 or $3 million for like a year just to go there. You know what I mean? And it's like that part is really sad, but I would also say too, that's where as a high school kid, you got to understand that like one, you can't be greedy because like there's going to be older guys that are, and coaches are going to start learning that they really, really got to start keeping retention. You know what I mean? Like they're going to stop recruiting kids that only want the bag because they're going to understand that, hey, if he has a bad year his freshman year, Georgia comes and offers him, $2 million because he's a 5-star, he's going to leave me. So that's kind of where I think a lot of this is going to start to change with, how coaches recruit, how much in depth they go. And I also say this, as many portal kids that are getting signed, there's still like 40 to 50% that don't get signed, that don't have a home, that leave, that, are back at mom and pop's home because it's no problem taking a chance on yourself. But if you have a program that believes in you and things like that, like don't mess that up trying to, chase the top 2 or 3% that you see hit ESPN or your Instagram feed.
Yeah. And I remember something Chris Webber said years ago. It was before obviously all of this. He said these colleges should have a fund, and they should create a fund for kids, the student athletes. And if the kid makes it to the NFL or NBA or Major League Baseball, whatever it is, they're okay. That money goes back in the fund. But if they don't, it's kind of like a seed money here. You started.
That to me is so much better. That because then you equalize. Like if it's like, hey man, when everyone graduates. If you guys don't go to the league, it's $100,000, and you write off as an insurance policy that the university takes out through somebody.
Yeah,
you make the insurance company pay them.
Yeah. I agree. And the other thing, and I don't want to get educational, I don't want to get on anything, but the best math I ever took was consumer math, And I got kids in high school. They don't even teach it anymore. They want these kids learning all this other math. And most kids don't know at balancing your bank statements and understanding about interest and buying a house and cars and all of that stuff. I learned all of that in school. And we used to call it boot math back in the day in South Florida. So that's where the kids that weren't smart enough for the geometry. But I tell you what, I'm in business now. I'm in sales. I run a P&L, and I use that math more than anything.
I don't know who made the educational system, but I know he did like the railroad tracks. I can't believe what he did. But long story short, he basically said that if he was to build the educational system, which he did, he would want to build workers, not business owners. And it explains why we teach a lot of the kids the stuff that we teach. Is because nowadays most people, even though you have a degree, and like I don't know if you saw the stat that we're giving out more degrees than we ever have, but the IQ is the lowest that it's ever been. So like, how does that make sense? And then a lot of kids, when they graduate, what do? They go work 9-to-5 jobs. They're not business owners that are creating stuff. A lot of times it's people that don't go to college that, wind up finding a trade that really sticks for them, and they wind up growing it and developing it, which is super ironic.
Yeah. And you just fall into stuff. Like I didn't go to college. It wasn't in the cards for me, but again, I had an opportunity to get in sales and run a business and do different things. So it's like I tell my kid, man, just work hard. Whatever you do, if you work hard.
No, for real. Like
good things will happen.
One of my best friends was a baseball player, and to be honest with you, a lot of people didn't think that he was ever going to amount to anything. And right now, he owns 3 restaurants. And he started off working, then became a manager, and then someone invested in him, and they let him manage the whole Dickies, and now he runs like 3 of them. You know what I mean? And like I would never thought that. Like, and it's just like, there's so many paths for people. So if college isn't for you, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Exactly. As long as you have a plan, that's the biggest thing. You got to have a plan. That's it.
Well, and again, we can talk about this all day, but now we're getting nice. We're supposed to be over here.
This is a good rational, Knowles Gaines conversation. People are like, what? Fight.
Yeah, what the heck's going on? So I just wanted to ask him. We're going to get into the Cowboys, but Tuck, if you've got anything you want to add before we get going to that, definitely jump in. But the U legacy, does that still matter? Like, does the Michael Irvin and the Ed Reed, it's, I know it's been a long time, but a kid going to Miami, does the, like Irvin used to say, the U holds up here, it holds up here, to the top. Is that still a thing with kids, or is that long gone?
Honestly, I would say that. Honestly, I think it's all about the parents now. If I'm being honest with you, if they have parents that are older that watch Miami, I would say that most of those parents, they showed their kids Miami film growing up. So like, that's like what I heard for like Bryant, the linebacker that we signed out of Orlando. Like he's an Orlando kid, but he watched a lot of old film. But I'll be honest with you, a lot of kids look at like Georgia and Alabama probably the same way as a lot of us look at like the University of Miami. I mean, they've won for so long. You talk about guys in the league, the national championships that Saban has put under his belt, and obviously the last 2 years you're looking at Georgia going back to back. I think they're definitely casting a shadow over a lot of the high school kids because it's all about when you were raised and kind of when your parents were too.
Yeah.
If people have younger parents, and most of the time they've watched more of the Alabama, Georgia than they have like the Miami in like the early 90s.
Yeah, I've ruined my kid with Miami and Dallas. I feel bad.
Yeah, good. My college roommate, actually, his son was one of the top recruits in this year's class at linebacker out of Denton, Texas, Denton Ryan, and huge Miami fan. We used to go back and forth, back in our dorms. And he tried to get him to go to Miami. He was like, nah, and went to Texas. So I was like, all right, he tried.
Yeah, but one thing I'll say though is that I finally think that Miami has the right staff. One thing that I've always said is that it doesn't matter where you're at. The best teams always win in the trenches. When you look at Alabama and even Georgia now over the years, like they always are putting in offensive linemen, defensive linemen, consecutively first round. Even when Clemson won, their national championship, 4 first-round defensive linemen. You got to win in the trenches. The fact that we have Mario, he's a hell of a O-line guy.
Yeah.
And to me, I think that really helps. To me, I think the game has really shifted to where if you can have a really productive offense and play semi-good defense, you can win most of your games. But obviously, I think that, if you have the right defensive coordinator, then you can stop most teams. So I think we at least have the right recipe between a guy that can recruit a really good offensive coordinator that understands spacing. I don't know if you've watched any of the film, but if you watch a lot of the concepts that they're running, a lot of it is like mesh-based concepts. And I kind of talked about it. It's really good because when you're running mesh, you have to understand the coverage. You got to understand where the holes in all the defense. So like that's kind of where like they're not really teaching routes anymore, which you want to teach routes, but you really want to teach these kids spacing, because if a kid runs a route and he runs his route into someone else, it does not matter. You know what I mean? You got to understand kind of where the sweet spot is in between people if it's zone coverage. And that's one thing that I think Coach Dawson is going to teach them, which will really help our offense.
Yeah, so let me ask you this, because you mentioned Alabama. So, I do a lot of draft content. I know you play the quarterback position at a high level. What's your thoughts on the quarterback class coming out in this year's drafts? You have, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, you have Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. What's your thoughts on those guys?
Yeah, so I think that the best out of all three is probably going to be CJ.
Okay.
I think that he has the size. I think that he has the athletic ability. And honestly, when he put those numbers up versus Georgia, I was like, yeah, this guy is he's good. I think Bryce Young will probably have the earliest impact. He kind of reminds me of like a Kyler Murray kind of player, where like he's super dynamic and teams are going to give him a chance early. I think Anthony Richardson has the most ceiling. I think he's kind of like the Cam Newton of the group. The guy's numbers are outrageous, and I think the team that drafts him first round, and I don't really care who drafts him, but I think the OC or head coach has to be super egotistical on how they think they can develop a quarterback. Because if you watch him, he's not the best thrower. You know what I mean? Like he has missed open passes. Shit, I mean, I've missed open passes.
Right.
But if you're talking about a first round guy, he shouldn't miss open passes. The reason is because their philosophy is that I can train this guy and I can teach this guy how to become, the best quarterback in the NFL. And that's kind of where that egotistical side comes. So he is a developmental guy. He's kind of like a Trey Lance kind of deal, where like you need a really good OC or head coach that can teach this guy fundamentals, because he's going to have the playmaking ability, but there's going to be times where he misses guys that are wide open. There's going to be times where he makes a play that your jaw is going to hit the ground. And so that's kind of where I fit some of these guys in. And I like Will Levis. I think that he's going to be one that has talent but needs talent around him. Like he has enough talent to where like he can make every throw. But I don't know, like the rest of the guys, I don't know if he can do a good job of extending plays consecutively in the NFL to kind of be like a serious playmaker.
One thing Troy Aikman said, and you're the quarterback, so I'll trust you. He said a quarterback can't become accurate. If he's not accurate coming out of college, he can't all of a sudden become a 65%. Do you believe that or no?
Lies.
Yeah.
Lies.
Just an old man just talking noise, huh?
Yeah, no, 100% lies. The real reason is now, like, I think when Troy was there were some different ways to throw. But even when you go back now and look at how they threw and how most new age people throw, it's completely different. A lot of stuff is rotational. They've done a ton of stuff with like science on like how to actually throw. Like I don't know if you watch sports science when they did all like the metrics on like Drew Brees and how the ball was coming off and how his mechanics were. So like they got down to like a science on like how you should throw. So to me, the biggest thing is just educating people on how to throw properly. And then they got to find it. A lot of it is muscle memory. And I think that's probably more what he's talking about, is that it's a lot harder to break old habits. So teaching someone that has spent 24 years throwing one way, it will be very hard to break, but it's not impossible. Like you can, it just takes someone that is super self-dedicated, that can really understand how his body's moving, because, when you don't have a coach there and you throw 200 or 300 balls, you're generally going to go back to what you originally did. And if you're not conscious of what you're doing, you'll never break old habits. And that's a lot of time, what stops a guy like Anthony Richardson is he just continually falls back into old habits because the muscle memory kind of takes over.
Well, I got one last thing, because it came in the chat, and this is from a Florida State guy. What's your thoughts on Dion?
I like Dion. Dion scares me a little bit because he's going to get a lot of skilled players. But one thing I can say is that I think he'll do a good job of creating hype. I don't think that he'll do a good job of actually winning big-time games. I think he's going to get very much exposed in the trenches. I think that's one area in the next 2 or 3 years you're going to see him probably trying to throw a lot of money at really good O-line coaches and D-line coaches, because you can have, really good defensive backs and whatever you want to do. But if you can't get pressure on the quarterback and he has all day to throw, at some point someone's going to get open. And so that's
Yeah.
kind of where like he has to find the balance. I think he'll do a great job of getting quarterbacks, skill players, defensive backs. So I think, they're going to be hard to score on, but at some point, I think that their trench play, whether it's O-line or D-line, is going to start to show whenever they're playing like really, really good teams.
Did you hear his comments that he made that were a little controversial about quarterbacks or like recruiting what you want and then recruiting D linemen and the type of the home that you want them to come from?
Yeah, it's funny. I heard that, and I would say I understand the philosophy, but also though I feel like it really shouldn't matter. To be honest with you, but I mean I understand now you're at the point where you're D1, you have hundreds of thousands of kids to choose from. Like if you're going to choose, you at least need a profile of what you're looking for. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I also think that if there's a super athletic, good quarterback that comes from a single household, he's not going to say no.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think you're going to be like, no, I'm passing on this 5-star because, like, that's not realistic.
In the house,
but I think that if he's saying, hey, if I had an idealistic of what I want, yeah, because I understand that. Because at the end of the day, like, you want your defensive lineman to play pissed off. Like, that's what you want. Most of the time, kids that come from single-parent households, especially single mother households, unfortunately, have genuinely anger issues, and they have different things like that, which is a lot unfortunate. But you do have a lot of kids that are more hungry out of a single parent household than out of a 2-parent household.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but either way, I don't think it matters.
You can just rephrase it. Say, I want more dogs. On defense.
I mean, that's
IQ guy.
I think he just wants people that's hungry. I think.
Yeah, we get it, but he just wants.
But like, you didn't have to say all that.
No. Well, Michael Irvin put it probably a better way. I don't know. Did you play with his son? I can't remember if he was there.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Well, when Michael Irvin said when his son was younger, he said, "Hey, Dad, I want to be in the NFL." And Michael Irvin said he got him a plane ticket, sent him back down to South Florida. He said, "Because living in this house, having all these things, you're never going to be hungry to go to Miami and to be able to to even have an opportunity to get
It's real though. You gotta want to. And it's one thing that I tell a lot of my quarterbacks, man. The biggest thing that separates the good from the great, most of the time, it's not athletic ability. It's really not. It's perfecting your craft, and it's understand mentally how to get past stuff. A lot of people don't perfect their craft, or they mentally have something that holds them down, whether it's, relationship issues, whether it's something in their past, whether it's interceptions they can't get past, whether it's not spend enough time learning the playbook, not spend enough time studying film. Most of the time, those are the things. Because by the time you get to college, everyone's big, fast, strong, has something somewhat freakish about them. The difference is how do you process stuff? How do you handle your day-to-day? How do you handle your routine? Do you show up on time? Do you show up late? How do you talk to other people? That part is what really, what I've learned is what really changes people and really shows between the good and the great. We talk, especially from the quarterback position, we talk to a lot of guys, like all quarterbacks have sat behind someone. They've all had to beat someone else. They've all had their own mental thing they had to get past. Everyone, especially like when you look at our quarterback room, everyone throws the ball really good. But the guy that's going to be out there is a guy that's the best leader, that process information the best, that can run the offense the best. It's not the biggest, the fastest, and the strongest. If it was, Ja'Cory Brown would be our starter. Right. But he's not. You know what I mean? And that's just how football is, especially the quarterback position. But a lot of times, even outside that, you look at like Justin Jefferson and like really good receivers, like even Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen is not the biggest, fastest, strongest, but the guy runs great routes. You know what I mean? And he mentally knows where the holes are on the defense. He understands kind of that part of football. And to me, I think that's what separates a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a perfect segue. Maybe the love is going to stop. And let me change the colors a little bit.
There you
go. And Jay, I'm gonna need a lot of help from you on this one, because unless you agree with them, then you guys are gonna gang up on me. You made a comment that sorry Cowboy fans, I'm paraphrasing, Dak Prescott's never gonna lead you to a Super Bowl. So give you a chance to respond and just kind of give us your thoughts on why, and then hopefully, man, Jay Tuck's on my side. Maybe
before we start, the way you worded on Twitter, everyone thought I was saying that. So I got so many messages like, "Why would you say that about Dak?" I'm like, "No."
That's funny.
Almost got me jumped, Mike.
He went to a Cowboys game. They'd have been waiting.
Yeah. There he is.
That's funny. Yeah, no. So the main reason why is I feel like for the last couple of years, Dak has had a very elite offensive line. I think that, like I've said, you win games up front. He's had some of the best receivers. I like CD Lamb, um, Gallup. I mean, the running backs are great. Ezekiel Elliott, even the rookie that's coming in. So it's not he's in a situation to where the talent's not around him. Um, to me, I think he has the ability, so the ability's not the issue. I just don't think that I don't think he fears for his job, to be honest with you. I think him and Jerry Jones have a very good relationship, and I think sometimes whenever quarterbacks are scared to lose their job, that's whenever they start to play a little harder. And to me, I think there's just too many times to where he needs to drop his nuts where he doesn't. Excuse my language, but it's like a couple clutch third downs. Like, I'm paying you, millions of dollars, and you're not winning playoff games that you should win. And to me, it'd be different if it was a lack of talent around him, but it's not. You go player by player, position by position, and most of the time they're just as good, and in more positions they're better than most of the teams that they play. And so that to me is just like in the NFL. When I was with Monk, and that was his biggest thing, is that a lot of times most of the guys are even, but like some of these guys, you have like a CD Lamb and you have an Ezekiel Elliott and guys like that literally change the game. And I think that they have enough talent around them that they should win, and that they should be beating more teams. And honestly, I think they should win further in the playoffs. To be honest with you,
No,
I think they should have scored more.
I can't disagree, but I'm going to defer. I'm going to let Tuck take the first crack at it. And again, we haven't talked, so I don't know if Tuck agrees or disagrees, but I'll let you go at it first.
No, I agree with some points, right? I feel like there is some cases, especially in the playoffs in that San Francisco game when I was out there in San Francisco, where it's just like Dak just has to take control. You had Tony Pollard go down. Your wide receivers core is kind of down. Like, you got to make something happen. But when it comes to Dak, the problem is we've seen it in the playoffs. So if you go back to what was that, Mike, 2018 versus Seattle, right?
Yeah.
It's third down, game on the line. He takes off. He's diving the end zone like he's putting the team on his back. But we have to be able to see that on a consistent basis. And we saw it the week prior in Tampa. That was the frustrating part because he was lights out versus Tampa. Like, he really came in.
I ain't gonna lie to you, Tampa was terrible though. I saw it.
But
excuses.
But
terrible.
You gotta think about it. This was a team that the Cowboys have lost to twice in the past 2 years, right? An opening game. Also, they never beat Tom Brady. They haven't won a playoff game on the road since 96?
96. All the pressure was on Dow.
So all the pressure was there from him to explode. So he rose to the occasion in that game, but the 49ers game, I agree. And I feel like you mentioned the offensive line. I think we got dominated in the trenches once again by the 49ers in the playoffs. But I agree, like, if Dak is going to get over the hump, he has to overcome some of those situations and clutch situations. But
yes, he does. Because like, I can't lie to you. You take that team and you put Burrow. I mean, you can even put Herbert. You could put Lamar. You could put Mahomes. All those guys would probably take you guys to a natty.
Well, all right, let's slow down a little.
I'm just being honest.
I mean, no, I appreciate it. Now, Burrow, Mahomes. I mean, you're talking.
Yeah, but I'm talking about guys that are young, that are getting paid less, that they clutch up, and that's my biggest thing. That if I'm going to pay you this much, Dak, you got to clutch.
Yeah,
like they yeah. To me, it's
well. Let me ask you. Let me ask you.
Burrow gets it done though, because then the reason why I say Burrow doesn't get it done because his wide receiver core is Noah Brown, is Michael Gallup coming off an ACL injury, Ezekiel Elliott. So,
yeah, but like when you watch, even especially the first Super Bowl they lost, when you go back and watch him, he was getting hit. Like, he was literally like mid throw, getting hit in the side, throwing. Yeah, the guys were open, and yes, like you watch a lot of contested catches, but I mean, if you talk about giving this guy time and letting him dissect the field, especially with the CD Lambs that you got, like, I don't think there'd be a team that can stop him. And that's one thing that you saw they did was they went in and they tried to get more offensive linemen so they could protect him because, yes, your receivers help, but if your quarterback ain't got time to throw, it's tough. And he made some throws that were just unbelievable. Pressure, guys on him, rolling out. Like, those were throws that were, like, literally on the run over two people into Jamar Chase's hand. And, yeah, he's a hell of a receiver. But, if you don't put the ball in the right spot, like, you've seen some of the bang-bang plays. So,
yeah. Well, let me ask you this. I'm going to take it a different angle. I'm not going to talk talent. I'm just going to talk Cowboys. So, you've got a head coach in Mike McCarthy who was brought in, offensive-minded head coach, let's just say, brought in The owner tells him, here's your offensive coordinator. Not his pick. I don't care what he could say all the nice things, but Kellen Moore was not his pick. We want to keep everything the same. So you basically, and you tell me as a quarterback at a high level, you basically cut the legs from under the head coach and forcing them to keep this offensive coordinator that runs a totally different style offense than what your philosophy is. And then what you saw last year is McCarthy starting to dig in and starting to say, hey, he runs, too many option routes. I would not want to do that. Or I had segmented plays for my playmakers to get them involved early. So you saw a little dissension going through there. So I guess my question is, with Moore gone and McCarthy and being able to be the buck stops here, coach and coordinator, could you see that change? I mean, I guess what I'm saying is Dak doesn't have the capabilities to win a Super Bowl, or was it the systems that were in place that maybe hindered him from winning going to a Super Bowl?
Yeah, I can definitely say that can definitely have a huge effect. Because he probably spent a lot of time with the head coach and the offensive coordinator, and when there is that divide, like, you can definitely feel it as a quarterback. It's most of the time, I'll be honest, most of the time these coaches do not hide it. they really don't. But I will say too, to me, a lot of times, yeah, Kellen Moore, the offense might not have been the best, but a lot of times when you watch the throws, like, guys are still open. And to me, I think that's the biggest part, is that it doesn't matter if it's McCarthy's offense, Kellen Moore. I mean, even if you bring Andy Reid down, at the end of the day, if it's a third down and you have a guy that's open, like, you got to hit him. And to me, it's some of the throws that I've just watched on third down that's just like, I don't know, in a big time game, if the game's on the line, like, can he consistently do what, like, Mahomes did? Remember that Mahomes, Josh Allen went, like, back forth. Like, could Dak do that? And that's the thing. And most of those throws were third down clutch throws. They did it over and over and over. And that's the thing that's like, he has the athletic ability, but it's like, for some reason, when you need him consistently, it's like he's there sometimes and he's not. And I just feel like nowadays, with the way these high-powered offenses score, it's not like the old days to where, like, if I score, every third drive, like, we're good. No, Mahomes, you got to score every drive to keep up with him. And it's like, can he do that? And to me, there's just been times to where he's shown that he can. And so, I don't know who they need to add, whether it is, a new OC and get McCarthy in. I think it's more about him just finding out, how do I relax more? How do I make it to where I'm more comfortable in these high pressure situations where I don't miss these guys? It's not athletic ability. Like, the guy's athletic, the guy can make every throw. That's why he's in the NFL. That's why he's been playing for Dallas for so long.
Yeah.
About being consistent during high pressure. And that's why they pay you so much. Like, that's your job. Like, that's why the owners get paid and the high managers get paid what they get paid, because they deal with high risk situations. And as a quarterback, that's what you got to do. Like, it's high risk, high reward.
So let me ask you this. When you watched the Cowboys in previous year under Kellen Moore, what was your idea of what that philosophy was from the offensive approach? Because, we've had conversations about it because it didn't feel West Coast-ish. I kind of labeled it as a no identity offense, something he brought from Boise from his time with Chris Peterson. But it's just like, what was your thoughts on what is actually going on? Because you mentioned spacing earlier. There was a lot of situations with the Cowboys wide receiver core where this is limited spacing, lots of stop routes. But I want to kind of get what your perspective was when you watched the Cowboys play.
Yeah, when I watched him play, I would say it looked like he tried to do more of almost what, like, Mississippi State does, where it's almost like get the ball out your hand fast to your playmakers. And then every once in a while, like, they did take their shots. I know they took some good shots to CeeDee Lamb. But I would say a lot of times I didn't really watch the pass concepts. A lot of times when I watch football, I watch the quarterback's feet. Like, I love watching their feet. I love watching their throwing mechanics, which is why I know Dak can do it. Like, he has the right mechanics, but for some reason he just doesn't make it. But I would say Kellen Moore's offense was just more new age. To me, I think he runs a very similar style to what Coley runs, to where, like, they have their playbook, but they're not scared to, like, try new things, take plays that they saw from other teams and try, make it their own. I mean, I think that's kind of where, like, some of the newer players are probably like, what is that? Why is he trying that? Sometimes people do it just to, add energy and add, like, life to a team, saying, hey, like, we're going to try something new, boys. Let's try, like, this new route concept or this new play that work. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like, I remember it, and you remember too, Mike, the halfback pass from Joe Yearby versus Washington State. It was during practice, it was fun. Like, everyone's yelling and like, we're super hyped, and you run and you're like, that was a terrible call. And it's just like, it happens, and it's just like, it's part of the game, especially when you're talking about, like I said, the offense is changing. So, like, trying new stuff, creating new route combinations and stuff that people want to do. Like everyone wants to try, add their stamp to like offense and how they kind of created it. So I think that's kind of what he was trying to do was, be kind of unique. And I think, sometimes it just bit him in the butt. So.
Yeah. Do you think he was just having fun running an empty set on 2nd and 2 with less than 2 minutes to go inside the 20 of a playoff game when you got Zeke and Pollard? Was he just trying to have some fun?
Yeah. But with this one,
I would just say, like, I don't even know what they call, but a lot of times, like, and honestly, I would probably go empty too. To be honest. Yeah,
because half. Would you want to? You get that first down.
The only reason why is the only way that I would let Dak Prescott throw was if it was a perfect look. Otherwise, most of the time, it should be a very soft box. So I'm probably going quarterback draw.
Now I would have accepted that.
Right.
So that's my philosophy. Like when I'm doing that, if I go spread, it's not spread to really throw. It's more spread to say, hey, like the only way we throw is in these ideal looks. Like if they give us man and they load the box with 5 or 6 people, then we got to take advantage. If not, and they're spread out, then we're doing quarterback draw. We're going to go 5-on-5, and you just got to get that 2 yards. Put your head down and go forward. So that's more of my philosophy and how I kind of think about empty. I'm really big on a lot of quarterback run action at empty.
And I've tried to forget about it, but Tuck, remind me, was that a pick, that play?
Yeah, it was an interception to CeeDee Lamb.
So you might be right.
Yeah. I don't even think it was, man. I got to remember.
That's the only way I would throw it. If it's some type of zone 2, especially like a 2-high zone, like you're running the ball, Dak. You're 6'3", 6'4", just run up, lean forward. You got the first.
So from the quarterback, because you played the position, you get out there, you're in the playoffs, you're Dak Prescott, you're going, 5 wide. Do you audible out of it and say, nah, I'm not going to run this play. I'm going to run something else? What is your thought process? Because that's where a lot of Cowboys fans kind of blame Dak. Like, why would you run that even if you know it's a bad idea?
Oh, yeah. I would just say that comes down to a lot of, one, how much you trust yourself. Secondly, how much faith your offensive coordinator and head coach have into you. So, give a really good example. There was a 3rd and 1. We're playing Virginia Tech. Their philosophy was on 3rd and short, they were going to show 0. We had a philosophy was when you show 0, we check out of it. We go max pro and we throw like inside goes or like fades on the outside or stop. Like we had a whole bunch of different options. I remember checking, and as soon as I checked, they killed out of it. And then I went from an actual pass into a run play. So I was like, I didn't like the pass. Like they checked out, they got deep. So I actually handed off to DJ Dallas. We wound up getting the first, but wound up getting cussed out on the sideline. So it's really all about, they trusted me enough to check it, which was why they didn't call a timeout. But it's like you really, really got to know what you're doing, because if you check out of it and it fails, then that entire game is on you because you checked out of a play that the coach called. At least if you're with the coach and his play fails, it was his play call. It was on him. I just executed what I was being told. So that's kind of where you also really got to have a lot of faith in yourself, because if imagine if he checks it and they run it and he gets hit in the backfield and everyone's like, why did you check it? Like, what was it? Like, then it's always the reverse. That's kind of where, a lot of times, like if you have faith in your coach, you'll just let it ride because, you're like, man, I trust the play calling. I trust my coaches. This is why they're here to get paid. So it's a 50-50.
Yeah. And Dak and Kellen Moore were just like this. So,
yeah. And if you trust them, you're going to go with the call.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were teammates.
Yeah. The teammates, yeah. Good best friends. So unfortunately.
Yeah. So in the end, do you follow the NFL much? Are you more college?
Way more college. Love college football. I'm more players. I really like watching certain players. I try to keep up with a lot of the guys I played with, and that's really what I watch. And then honestly, I like the sports gamble, so I watch the games I bet on.
Oh, there you go. That's nice. That's all. And we got Uncle Cheech on live. He does it. He's one of the best, and he's a Miami fan too. He's one of the best sports handicappers in the business. He's been around a long time. But
March Madness, man, last week.
I don't like basketball.
Okay.
So there was a message. Miami, how you feeling about the Canes in basketball? You think their time is up, or we got something left in it?
I think we have one more game, and then I think that we play a team that just has too many big guys. I think the one thing that helps us versus Houston is that our forwards in our center are bigger than their forwards in the center. So we had a ton of offensive rebounds versus Indiana, which I think that's what's going to help us. But I think we're going to have to score a lot. I know they probably have a bunch of shooters. I know when I've watched Houston in the past, they've been really good at shooting three-pointers. So that's kind of where it does kind of make me nervous is, are we going to give them open shots? Are they able to, play really good transition basketball? Because you saw, I can't remember who we played before Indiana. We looked kind of
terrible. Drake.
Yeah. Drake, yeah, we just looked like they just played solid defense, and it just really gave us a lot of fits. And that to me is kind of, what kind of worries me with a team that is more explosive offensively than Drake, but is probably going to play really good defense. But I think we have a little bit of size.
We play Friday night. J Tuck, what time does Florida State play? I want to make sure I watch it.
I'm done with March Madness, man.
What about Florida? What time does Florida play? I heard that they might have a game too.
Yeah.
Well, Miami's just because. So, talking about quarterbacks, I wanted to ask you who maybe some of the guys you like in the NFL that quarterbacks. But Van Dyke, I didn't get a chance to talk about him. I was, and I still am, all in, a huge fan. I thought he was an NFL, like he's the next Miami quarterback that'll get to the next level in the NFL. I mean, what's your thoughts on Van Dyke and that?
Yeah. So I'll give you positive and negatives, and I think they're very obvious. So we'll go negatives first because I like everything in the positive news. If he can fix his feet, so what I mean by that, and I've told him this before, and he's even said it, a lot of times when he throws, and usually it's to his right, his back ankle. So like if I was to turn and throw at you, I would turn sideways, my left shoulder's pointed at you, but only is my left shoulder pointed at you, my back ankle's pointed at you as well. So that's whatever, that's a lot of stuff that we teach is, hey, have your back ankle to your target or in front of your target so you're throwing behind your feet. A lot of times with him, he throws off platform, which is mean like his feet are one way, but he's throwing to his right. So he throws a lot of wide sidearm passes, but that's the reason why is because his feet are off, so his arm has to extend. And the second one is he overstrides sometimes, so it allows him to get wide. His windup gets longer. Everything kind of gets a little bit longer. But if he can fix those two, I think he has a lot of upside. The guy can make every throw. And like I said, he's making 40, 50-yard bomb throws with literally just his arm. No legs, no core. It's all arm talent, which I tell him all the time, dude, that is not normal. Like most people do not make that throw. You know what I mean? The fact that you can is really, really good. But I tell him all the time, can you go 10 for 10? If you can't go 10 for 10, then like we got to fix it. And so that's kind of where I really am glad that he's with guys like Dawson that understand that side, that can really start helping him make those strides because physical ability, IQ will never be his issue. It's going to be, can I do the mechanical small things right that really help me be really consistent? Because like I said, it's going to be a lot of spacing. You see them now, they run a lot of curls, a lot of, stuff in between the linebackers. A lot of that's going to be, throwing to the left shoulder, throwing to the right shoulder, tight turning. I've said it a lot. This offense is it's a lot different than Lashley's. Lashley's offense was almost like Rick's, where it was really built on explosive plays, taking advantage of, the cover one, the times you get cover one. This offense, to me, is more like a leech offense where, they'll go 15 plays down the field throwing quick game if they have to. They will have explosion plays, but he really, really wants accurate quarterbacks that, if these guys want to play back, that you'll take a hit, you'll take a slant, you'll take the mesh in between. And the big thing is if you have ball placement, now you have yards after catch. So that's kind of where this offense can be really, really good as long as he has really good ball placement. So I think Tyler's going to have a good year. I think the biggest thing for me, at least what I'm watching for him, is one, his feet. Are your feet at the target? Secondly, do you overstride? Sometimes when he overstrides, like I said, he gets super long. So it just causes sequencing issues during, his throwing mechanics.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that we get back
I think they'll get it right, man. I've watched a lot of his film, and I've sent him clips before. And I've even told him, man, you look a lot better with your feet. Keep it up. You know what I mean? So I try to do a lot of positive reinforcement with him. But he has gotten a lot better. That's one thing that I know personally he has, taken a lot of time to emphasize. And I think if he can fix that, those two small issues, it's going to make a world of difference for his accuracy, for his confidence, and really for a lot of the plays that are going to be made next year.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'll be down there at the A&M game. I want some revenge.
I'll be there too. We gotta connect. We gotta connect.
No, definitely. You mentioned the Canes Club, so we'll have to definitely with the Tampa chapter. We'll definitely have to link up. But Jay, any thoughts on quarterbacks or any other questions before I don't want to take
No,
up
man,
all.
great show, man. I appreciate you, even though you're a hurricane, man. I love just talking ball, man. You got a lot of insight, and I think the viewers really understand that. Just getting the insight of a quarterback, it's the most complicated position. I always try to tell people. Not only do you got to understand what your side of the ball is doing, but also the defensive side of the ball, man. So it's good to get that insight that a lot of people don't have access to, man. So appreciate you. Maybe we'll see you in Tallahassee next year. So Mike.
I'll be up there. I got
Mike ducked out on me last time. So.
Nah, look, I will be there. We will be there. I'll bring my. I would say my kid would be the good luck charm, but he was there for the beating without me. So.
Over it, man. They were over it. They're like, we're getting up out of here, man. So.
Yes, yeah.
I'll for sure be there.
All right.
Yeah. And we're gonna. What I'm gonna do is, you say you're Saints. This you don't know. I'm gonna make you a Cowboys fan. You saw the hype videos. You saw it kind of getting going. I will turn you into a fan. We'll get you out to AT&T. Jay Tuck and I got some nice teeth, so we'll do it right. We tailgate like no other, and we'll have a good time. I'll make you a Cowboys fan.
You'll turn into a Dak fan, man.
I tell you what, though, I'm a Cooper Rush fan.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like Coop. He trains with our quarterback group out of Dallas. And I really thought whenever he came in there, he did a really good job of commanding the offense. So I like both of them. Yeah, I like him a lot too.
Cooper saved our season.
Yeah, he saved. It's like, whew, I thought it was going to be over week 2, man. And dude,
that guy can definitely spin it. And it was funny. They talked about him for a while in our organization about when this guy gets a chance, like we think he's going to light it up. So was glad he was able to help the Cowboys.
Yeah, I thought he was going to try. I thought maybe he was going to try and parlay because he saved the season. I thought maybe that parlay into an opportunity to compete for a job. But I think to your point, I think one of the problems, with Dak is maybe they need to bring in, or maybe they need to have Cooper, push him more or have someone just to create a little competition. I think I think with more gone, if you've seen McCarthy is not afraid to make some tough changes. And he's done it in certain positions, even with the Cowboys, but for some reason the quarterback hasn't,
It's hard though. Like it's like playing with fire. Like it's like you want it hot, but you don't want to get burned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where you're at is like when you're dealing with quarterbacks, especially when there's a competition, and it's kind of almost like too, especially when you want, because they want Dak to start. But whenever you start to push him, the problem is some people are smart enough to keep fighting through it and become better. Other people, especially if the guy behind him, which Cooper Rush is a hell of a quarterback, if they start succeeding, does small things of doubt start to come in? And when that starts to happen, it affects everything. It affects your timing. It affects, do you trust your receivers to throw into tight windows? So that's kind of where, I love the competition. But the problem is that if it comes too hectic at some point, you could start seeing Dak start to change just because doubt is something that a lot of quarterbacks deal with at some point. And a lot of times it happens when there's a really good backup behind you that pushes you. And you know what I mean? It's like, hey, like if I make a mistake, is Cooper Rush going to replace me? Because he has been balling, he has been playing good. So that's kind of where it's like playing with fire, but sometimes you got to get burned. So
well, it's been 27 years. I've been burned.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't think Cooper Rush wins you guys a Super Bowl either. I think you guys, and it's not his fault. I think the guy's a great quarterback. I just think that nowadays you got to have someone that's extremely mobile.
Yeah.
Like you look at quarterbacks, like you got to be able to run, especially some of these defensive ends. Like you're looking at Nolan Smith coming in running a 4.39 40 off the edge. That guy's moving.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? So
that's why I tell you the safest, the unbreakable record in football is Emmitt Smith's rushing record because how big and fast the defensive players got. I just don't see how a running back can survive 17 games, playoffs. You can play 3 or 4. You can be at 20 games. That's why I laugh. People are like, oh, well, let Pollard be the one. You got to pick one. You need 2 running backs. You maybe even need 3 running backs.
Right, you need 3. Yeah.
You really need 3.
Mm-hmm.
You do. Because one of your running backs is most likely going to play special teams too.
Right.
Yeah.
Usually that's what happens. So you definitely need 3. But I think you guys got some really good backs. I really like Pollard, and I'm interested to see how they get him integrated in the pass game. I think that's kind of where he really becomes explosive to me. Obviously, he's a great runner, but a lot of these backs, whenever they can add into the pass game, it just really opens up offenses.
Yeah.
That's what we've been asking for. So,
well, and well, I'll ask you one last question. At 26, Bijan's sitting there, running back for the Cowboys. Do you take him?
No.
No.
I think you guys need to get like another receiver.
But we got Cooks. We just signed
Yeah,
him.
but you always want a young guy that's electric.
Yeah.
They help whether it's special teams, kickoff, punt return. Maybe they come in there on some package. And obviously too, now when that happens, the drop off between your first string and second string is less. So now you're able to rotate guys more. So I think there's stuff for receivers that they need help with. Or for me, honestly, I think it's never a bad idea to get you someone in the trenches, a young guard, center, D tackle. Get someone that's going to either protect your quarterback or go rush your quarterback. I think that you can do a lot of stuff in like the trading market to go find your running back for 1 to 2 years that can kind of hold you over. And then draft a young running back that's super talented late. Like I bet you second, third round, Kenny McIntosh is probably still going to be there from Georgia. You're going to have some really good backs. Obviously, Bijan's a changing back, but I don't think the missing piece for Dallas is a running back.
Yeah.
If it was, then I would say yeah, but I don't think that's the missing piece that's going to miraculously change their season in the next couple of years.
Yeah. I just remember what Walker did in the 5th round. The Michigan State running back ran for about 300 yards against Miami. I think he's still running. Last time he played us. So
look at him at Seattle. He looks great at Seattle.
No, that's to your point of running back later. That's probably maybe the
best. Yeah, you just got to be smart with who you get. You really, really do. I also think that drafting running back high is hard because, like you said, man, these guys are big, they're fast, they're strong. The running backs play less reps, and also the odds of injury go up.
Yeah.
So it's like yes, he's worth it, but also like I said, is that the missing piece that Dallas needs? Like, is a running back going to be worth more than a guard or a defensive tackle that I could play and that's going to protect my quarterback or rush your quarterback?
Yeah. Well, there's some love there too. So when I was a kid, I used to get so pissed at the draft when Dallas didn't draft a receiver or a cornerback or a flashy position. And as I've gotten older, it's like, man, the game's won in the trenches. To echo your point. It's like, and so now I get in arguments with people like Tyler Smith, the Cowboys. The fan just absolutely destroyed the Cowboys for taking it. Boy, that looked like a good pick, right, Tuck?
Well, I just get upset when they don't draft my Seminole players, man, because I was huge on Asante Samuel 2 years ago, and we passed on him, and Jalen Ramsey passed on him. Derwin James didn't get him, so I given up this year. So
yeah, well, Michael Irvin said you can never have enough of the U on your team, and when Miami won the Super Bowl, Kevin Williams, Russell Maryland, Jimmy Jones, I can run the list down. They always had the guys from the U, and it brings a little bit of attitude. And I still think they do. So hopefully, maybe Stevenson, someone might fall to Dallas.
Yeah, man. Maybe this offseason they pick up Rambo. Rambo's been looking good in the XFL. I don't know if you've seen him, Charles Rambo, but he's
Charles. I was surprised he wasn't drafted. I don't know. I loved him in Miami. I thought he
played really well. I thought he played actually a lot bigger than his size, actually. So if they're looking for a receiver, that guy for sure has really good hands.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate. I could talk for 10 hours and get me going on the Canes and the Cowboys, but hang tight. I appreciate you joining. But go ahead one more time. Just tell everyone where they can find you and all that good stuff, man. Because you're doing good things.
So my Twitter is Malik Rosier 12, and for everyone that was here earlier, I have a business page that I help Miami student athletes. We're starting this Tuesday, teaching them business literacy, and you can find out more information about that and how you guys can help if you guys want to help at Miami Mills Club. Yes, Miami Mills Club. So Miami MILLS and then Club. So it's Miami Mills Club. You'll see kind of our own version of the Miami Ibis. I can't call it a duck because it's not a duck, but the Miami Ibis. You'll see our own version on there. So it's very distinct. And we're doing some business networking with the student athletes starting this coming up Tuesday.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Hang tight. Don't hang up. I'm just going to end the show and then want to bring you right back and just say thanks again.
Perfect.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Tuck. How was that, man?
It was great, man. Great. Thanks
good time.
Love it.
It
love
wasn't as fight. We weren't fighting as much, but it's all right.
Our teams are
Who runs it five championships.
our teams aren't. Yeah, our teams don't fight enough, man. We're not good enough to fight yet.
No, so I appreciate it. Everyone knows where you're at, but go ahead and just one time let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, man, you guys can find me on all social media platforms at jtuck151, and of course my YouTube channel CFO Sports. Come over there. We're doing a lot of draft content, Cowboys content, having fun. We're doing mock drafts and a live draft show every Thursday night at 8 p.m. with my guy Law Nation, Big Game James, Boss Cowboy, OC, and DMV, man. So we're just doing business as usual. Getting ready for
handling best content creators in the business for the Cowboys. So I'll leave you guys. We'll be back live tomorrow. You know, my boy Kelly Kane and I, we're going to be all Cowboys. You know, I had to bring a few stuff, but I appreciate it. You guys take care. Have a good one. I'll leave you a little exit.
Uh-oh.
Eagles getting ready, because you might not like it, but you will learn to love it, because we are the best thing going today. Now, can you dig it?